I believe the ETF will be approved sometime around year end, whether it's in early January or December, sometime in that time frame.
In the ever-evolving world of cryptocurrencies, a seismic shift is looming on the horizon. Grayscale Investments, which oversees the world's most prominent crypto fund, recently secured a legal victory against the Securities and Exchange Commission. This victory has ignited a wave of speculation and anticipation surrounding the prospect of the first Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. Grayscale had previously filed a lawsuit against the SEC in June 2022 for rejecting its application to convert its flagship Bitcoin fund, GBTC, into an ETF. With the case ruled in Grayscale's favor, there is renewed optimism that the SEC is now poised to make the Bitcoin market more accessible by approving ETF applications from companies like BlackRock, Fidelity, and Grayscale Investments. As anticipation for the Bitcoin ETF reaches a fever pitch, financial experts and analysts from around the world are sharing their predictions for its future. One such expert is Marcus Yusko, a seasoned investor and the founder of Morgan Creek Capital Management. In an enlightening interview with Paul Barron, Yusko offers his insights, forecasting that the much-anticipated Bitcoin ETF will likely receive approval either by the end of this year or in early 2024. Now let's delve into the highlights of this interview with one of the industry's brightest minds, Mark Yusko.
Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to drop your comment and observations in the comment section below. Thanks and enjoy the video.
And I think that will pave the way for a very large influx of capital. I know you've had Eric on the show about Tunis, and he does this great work, right? I mean, there's 30 trillion with a T, 30 trillion. Remember, 1 trillion is $1 every second for 31,710 years. But 30 trillion is going to come into, or that's the total amount of money managed by RIAs and others that is not allowed at this point, for whatever silly reason, to own Bitcoin. And they can't own GBTC and they can't own Bitcoin miners, and they've called a timeout. Well, once there's an ETF, particularly if it's an ETF that BlackRock runs, there's going to be no excuse, and they're all going to have to approve it. Their clients have been asking for it. I would say I have a family harmony account at UBS. They won't let me own anything related to, like, why? It's my money.
Right.
You should let me buy what I want to buy. And they're like, no. So I think all that goes away. And I think Eric's number is, let's say 0.1% comes in. That's 30 billion. Well, but wait, 30 billion on 500 billion, that's not that much. Well, no, it's not 500 billion. 400 billion of the 500 billion of Bitcoin's market cap doesn't really trade. It's either locked up like the Satoshi wallet or the Winklevoss wallet, or hodlers that just said, take it out of my cold dead hands. It's only about 100 billion that is the free float, to borrow a TradFi term. And so 30 billion on 100, that'll move the price.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I don't think it's going to be 10 basis points. I think it's 1%. I think you have to do 1%. As a fiduciary, if you got, 50% in equities at some of the highest valuations in history, and you got, another 30% in bonds, which have had the first 2 negative years in the history of the bond market, 140 years of history, 2 negative years, looking pretty ugly. And you got this asset that is the best performing asset again. Okay, 11 of the 14 years that Bitcoin has been alive, it's been the best performing asset of all assets. It's the best performing asset again this year. I think 150 billion would be 0.5%, right? Instead of 10 basis points. And it looks like he's updated his thoughts. I'll go further and say 1% seems more likely. That'd be 300 billion. 300 billion on 100 billion of free float, price goes up a lot. And here's the interesting thing, Paul, is the way halvings work is the fair value increases. So we've got a tailwind that the fair value today, based on Metcalfe's law model that Tim Peterson runs and that I think is fantastic, says that the fair value is somewhere in the low 50s, 52, 53, let's just call it 50. So at the halving, fair value doubles. Well, what do you mean, Mark? What are you talking about? Well, think about it. The miners who secure the network, their costs are fixed. mining machines and electricity. So if their block rewards, the number of rewards that they're paid to secure the network, gets cut in half and the price doesn't move, then they're out of business. So there's a built-in mechanism to move the price higher, which is actually really interesting because that attracts attention because there's movement. And so long story short, fair value, every halving has added a zero. So we went from 100 to 1,000. Then we went from 1,000 to 10,000. Now we go from 10,000 to 100,000. So if fair value is 100,000 and we're trading at 26, it's a pretty rapid increase to fair value, I think, as investors buy things that are below fair value. But then what happens in the fall, post-halving, you get this parabolic blow off top. And in the previous cycle, fair value was around 30K. We got all the way to 69.
Right.
That was because there was too much leverage and too much gambling and speculating. I don't think we go 2x this time or 2.5x this time. Could we get 1.5x? Sure. That gives about 150K, something like that.
Yeah.
In a moment of foresight, Mark Yusko paints a vivid picture of the potential impact of SEC approval for a Bitcoin ETF, especially when backed by industry giants like BlackRock. He aligns with Bloomberg Intelligence's projection that approximately 0.1% of the massive $30 trillion managed by registered investment advisors could flow into the cryptocurrency market once they gain access to Bitcoin. This influx, roughly equivalent to $30 billion, would significantly affect the crypto market, particularly the Bitcoin segment. According to Yusko, when these Bitcoin ETFs are finally approved, financial powerhouses will have no option but to offer their clients the opportunity to hold Bitcoin. Expanding on this projection, Mark Yusko acknowledges that the earlier estimate of 0.1% might have been somewhat conservative. He confidently speculates that as much as 1% of the colossal $30 trillion managed by RIAs, amounting to a substantial $300 billion, could potentially enter the Bitcoin market. While he refrains from making an immediate forecast of a 2.5x or 2x surge in Bitcoin's fair value, Yusko firmly believes that it should experience at least a noteworthy uptick of 1.5 times its current valuation.
I've been saying this for 5 years. My hashtag #GetOffZero is the wrong number, right? This is a truly unique, diversifying asset that must be in everyone's portfolio. Okay? It doesn't have to be your whole portfolio. I never said that. It should be at least 1%. I'll argue 2 or 3%, but 1%'s fine. And had you done that a decade ago, okay, had you taken 1%, half from stocks, half from bonds, 1%, put it in Bitcoin, your portfolio would have done two things. It would have compounded at about 250 basis points per year better with less volatility. So it reduces risk and adds return. It's the perfect diversifying asset because it's 0.0 correlated to bonds and 0.15 correlated to stocks. And look, Markowitz won the Nobel Prize for a reason. CAPM works. When you add diversifying assets with reasonable levels of volatility or even high levels of volatility, if they're highly uncorrelated, your portfolio becomes more efficient. And so as a fiduciary, you can't not have this asset, particularly if now there's a ETF by a trusted brand. So retail, many of them have abdicated that day-to-day responsibility to their financial advisor in a good way, right? Most people shouldn't manage their own money. I don't mean it's a bad thing. It's just that's not their specialty, right? They're nurses or construction workers or financial managers or whatever it is. That's not your day-to-day thing. And it didn't used to be that way, right? In the good old days, you worked for a company and you had a pension and they had a professional manager that took care of the money and you got a defined benefit for the rest of your life. And then they snookered us by saying, hey, we're going to change the rules and we're going to make it portable and defined contribution. Well, that was just a gift to corporations because they had to spend 30% less to fund their obligation, went straight to their bottom line and into the manager's pockets, and they thrust that responsibility on the individual. The average individual doesn't spend the time or have the knowledge to manage their portfolio. It's not a criticism, right? I'm not a great chef. I shouldn't try to cook my own food. right? I just, that's not my expertise.
Sure.
I should go take advantage of other people's expertise. I am a financial manager. I take care of people's assets. So I do think that the average investor will be very well served by having a good RIA, registered investment advisor, a good financial advisor, who will say, I gotta put 1%.
Yeah, let's go that direction.
Again, that's not even a big number. If we got 2 or 3%, Katie bar the door.
In response to Paul's query regarding how retail investors might react to the evolving Bitcoin landscape, Mark Yusko provides a compelling perspective. He emphasizes that Bitcoin should be a fundamental component of every investor's portfolio. According to his viewpoint, dedicating at least 1% of their portfolio to Bitcoin would be a wise decision for investors. Yusko elaborates on how this digital asset can contribute to the creation of efficient portfolios, particularly with the anticipated introduction of ETFs from reputable and well-established brands. Mark Yusko fervently believes that retail investors should seize this opportunity to incorporate Bitcoin into their investment portfolios. What are your thoughts on Marcus's assessment of Bitcoin exchange-traded funds? Do you share his predictions about the approval timeline for ETFs? Feel free to share your comments and observations in the comments section below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.